When man becomes disenchanted with just making a living, when he turns to greed, it kills him every time.
Clive Davis, what is your opinion about the Melendez brothers? Do you think they should be out?
How you doing, Mr. Davis?
How are you?
Good.
Do you have any opinions about Mr. Melendez?
American Music Awards. Are you going to be there? The AMAs, American Music Awards?
And about 3 weeks before the show was due to be taped, I called up Dion. I said, you know what? I can't do Soul Train, the second one. I can't do this. I can't do it.
And I said, are you sick? No, I just can't be seen right now. So I went by his home. I said, what's the problem? I mean, it's something that apparently we can fix. Look at me, look at me. I said, I'm looking at you. Well, I mean, I look like the Goodyear blimp. All you gotta do is write Goodyear across my butt and fly me. I said, Luther, I said, are you crazy?
I can't face.
Katt Williams is back, shaking the table again. And this time, he's calling out the industry's darkest secrets that no one was ever supposed to hear. You think you knew R&B history? Think again. Because apparently, the velvet-voiced legend Barry White wasn't just singing about love. He was out here trying to warn people. According to Katt, Barry White once pulled Luther Vandross aside and tried to alert him about none other than Clive Davis. Yes, that Clive Davis, the music mogul with a reputation for making or breaking careers. But the alleged warning? It wasn't about business. Katt claims Barry was trying to protect Luther from Clive's lustful interest in young male artists. Now let's pause. Do you guys realize how deep this goes? Barry White was an icon in the R&B scene, and he wasn't known for running his mouth recklessly. So, if he really said something like this, what was he seeing backstage? Before Barry White became the undisputed king of romance, he was just a South Central kid dodging trouble, and sometimes failing at it. Yup, Barry did time as a teen for stealing tires. But plot twist, that jail cell might have saved his life. He wrote in his autobiography, Love Unlimited, insights on life and love, that while sitting behind bars, he heard Elvis Presley's It's Now or Never, and something in him just snapped into focus. That voice, that vibe, that power, Barry decided right then, I'm gonna do this music thing, and I'm gonna do it big. Can you imagine the man who gave us Never Gonna Give You Up having his origin story start with a stolen tire and a prison radio? Insane.
And all my days I've hoped and I've prayed for someone just like you to make me feel the way you do. Never, never gonna give you up. I'm never, ever gonna stop.
Ain't stop the way to feel about you. Boy, I just
Barry White didn't just make music, he crafted the entire blueprint for seduction. With hits like Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, and You're the First, the Last, My Everything. The man practically engineered the 70s bedroom playlist. Soul met disco, silk met swagger, and boom. He became the soundtrack to love in an era obsessed with groove and intimacy. And get this, Barry couldn't even read or write music, but still, he was out producing, outselling, and out seducing everybody in the game.
When it comes to you, do you just immediately write it down, or are you always like this kind of?
Well, music, for me as a writer-composer, it always is dictated by the music. A lot of writers write lyrics first, then they find the music. The music always dictates the lyrics.
Really?
Barry White, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Barry still recalls the time when his voice changed. It was a regular morning. Barry wakes up, goes to talk to his mom, and boom, his voice had dropped from Mickey Mouse to Midnight Thunderstorm. I woke up one morning like any other morning. I spoke to my mother and it horrified both of us, he said. It was unbelievable. My chest vibrated. We just stood in the floor staring at each other. It was incredible. For the next 3 weeks, all of my friends wanted me to talk and say something. Everybody who worked with Barry White had nothing but love and respect for the man. Musicians, producers, vocalists, across the board. They spoke of his generosity, his warmth, his leadership in the studio.
Somehow, you got a gig to play with Barry White. So how did that happen?
What happened was they came to Seattle. Barry's sax soloist couldn't make it for whatever reason, so they're desperate. I remember my teacher comes up to me and goes, "Hey, do you want to do a gig with Barry White?" I go, "Huh? Do you want it?" I said, "Sure, I'll do it."
Weren't you like freaking out?
No, because I think I was too innocent to know that I should be nervous. The hard part was when I first showed up, I had a suit that I wore at my bar mitzvah, but it wasn't even a suit. It was like this plaid jacket with maroon pants. My mom picked it out for me. So I show up to get on the bus for this first gig with Barry White, and everyone's going, "What are you doing here, kid?" I said, "Well, I'm supposed to be playing with Barry White." "You? You're in the wrong bus," whatever. But it turned out I was on the right bus.
Took us to California to meet Barry. We go into this office they had on Sunset Boulevard, and we're all there, all excited, and here come Barry in there, and he was very big and imposing guy, had rings on all his fingers and really rusty, knuckles. Could have used some lotion. But anyway, he comes in and so he sits down. We're sitting at the desk, and he sits down, and he puts his hands, fold them, and then he looks at us and looks across and says, "I like you guys, but if you mess with me, I'm gonna F you up for life." That was the first thing he said to us. Okay, we're, first day, first sentence was, and it was like crazy. But we made an album with him and sold about 3 copies. My mom bought 2 of them.
But behind the luxurious voice and million-dollar smile, there was a man who had seen hell and climbed out of it on his own. Let's rewind to the streets of South Central. L.A. Barry and his younger brother Daryl weren't just siblings. They were a force. They ruled their block. But the price of that street life was steep. At 16, Barry was sent to jail for 7 months, caught for stealing tires, and that's where his whole life turned upside down. Just weeks after his release, Barry was wrongfully arrested for attempted. His world almost collapsed, for real this time. But the victim came out of a coma and cleared Barry's name. Can we just pause here? Like, imagine almost having your entire life stolen by a false charge just when you're trying to do better. But nothing prepared Barry for the pain that followed. His brother Daryl was killed in a gang-related fight. The one person who truly understood Barry, the one who'd been there through every scrape, scheme, and dream, was gone. And Barry never really got over it.
Don't gloss over it. You got into a lot of trouble at one point, or your friends did. You hung around with a bad crowd.
That's true. That's very true.
What straightened you out?
The bad crowd. I guess when I turned 17, I looked around me, and everywhere I looked, it was depression. People who were just going around in circles. I just felt that it was a better way of life.
And here's where the story flips from pain to power. While most artists in the industry had machines behind them, managers, labels, investors, Barry was self-made. He hustled from the bottom. He wrote, he produced, he arranged, he built groups from scratch, Hello Love Unlimited, led an orchestra, and created music that changed the entire soundscape of soul. And when the industry thought he was done, he made a comeback that shook the music world to its core.
What I want to ask you is, in a time when folks are having so many problems with record companies, when I say people, I'm talking about executives, and so many companies are folding because of taping, how do you survive, a black man with a black company?
I am not excluded from that nightmare of piracy and bootlegging. I look at it like this, Jay. When man becomes disenchanted with just making a living, when he turns to greed, it kills him every time. These same companies who are crying, we're going out of business, we're going out of business, we're going out of business, are the same companies who make the blank tape. So you have a record division and a tape division. The blank tape enables one to record music today. Technology has put everything in our hands where we can record music today without paying for it. That's too bad that the industry put that kind of weapon out there to kill themselves. I cannot expect for a person, regardless of what color he is or who he is, to want to hear a song and can't afford to buy it. I cannot blame that person for picking up his tape recorder and taping it, because we put the element in his hand to do it. We gave him permission. So how do I survive? I keep making my records. I'll keep making my records. I'll keep making my records. Some kind of way, the elements and the things that guides and guards my life takes care of Barry White.
Barry didn't just return, he dominated. Hits flooded in, platinum plaques stacked up. People couldn't believe it. The man who came from gang wars, wrongful arrests, and unbearable grief, he was now the king of sensual soul, redefining what masculinity, vulnerability, and love sounded like.
Amazing thing about you is, and we don't deal in heavy philosophy here, but you are an inspiration because you had no money. Now you get all the money anybody ever needs.
Quit saying that, Dick.
You want to get more? I mean, that's not important, but I mean, you can buy all the physical creature comforts, but have you changed inside at all?
I like to think I've changed to a better person, to a more aware person. I feel that everything must change. Money don't spend me, I spend money, so I keep control on it.
When the disco ball dimmed in the late 70s and early 80s, Barry's career hit a wall. The R&B sound was shifting. The labels wanted younger, shinier, and more marketable faces. And just like that, the music execs who once celebrated him began turning their backs. But did Barry fold? Nah. He reinvented himself. In 1990, he came back louder and smoother than ever, teaming up with Quincy Jones for the album Back on the Block. That's when Secret Garden dropped, a lush, sultry collaboration with James Ingram, Al B. Shore, and El DeBarge. The track became a slow jam anthem, living on in R&B playlists to this day. It spent 13 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. Not bad for someone the industry had counted out, huh? But fame isn't a shield. Barry had been preaching it for years. Greed will swallow you whole if you let it. It'll make you forget your purpose. He'd seen how power, lust, and control ran deep in the music biz. He warned people. And this might be the real reason he told Luther Vandross to steer clear of Clive Davis. Because Barry knew when the suits want you gone, they'll erase you and replace you.
Greed is a funny thing. Once you take a bite of it, it tends to turn on you and start eating you up. The industry was making enough money. The industry was growing fast enough. The industry was progressing enough without getting that greedy, that hoggish, becoming that bullish on money. It's a problem in America. Same thing happened to disco. It started out as an art form for the public, and everybody saw it as quick money. Naturally, we're a capitalistic country. Everybody jumped on it, and before you knew it, it was over. The record industry is no different, and we are no exception to greed and the repercussions of greed.
What can you do now if you find that the record companies are basically responsible, on one hand making the tape and on the other hand making the album? Who then is at fault?
Have you changed inside at all?
I like to think I've changed to a better person, to a more aware person. I feel that everything must change.
And while his music soared, his body was silently breaking down. In 2003, just months before his death, he suffered a massive stroke that impaired his speech. He was forced to step back from everything. No more shows, no more records, no more late-night studio sessions. And on July 4th, 2003, the world lost Barry White, he was just 58 years old. Before Barry White took his final bow, the spotlight had already begun shifting to another soulful voice, Luther Vandross, another velvet smooth crooner who could make heartbreak sound like poetry. But while Luther's rise seemed glamorous on the outside, Barry White saw the warning signs. He'd already been through the machine, and he wasn't about to let Luther walk into it blindly. Barry warned him, point blank, don't sign with Clive. Don't let him own your voice. But who was Clive Davis really? Clive Davis is one of the most powerful figures in the music industry, a 5-time Grammy winner, and the man behind the rise of Whitney Houston, Alicia Keys, Janis Joplin, and more. He was hailed as a genius with a golden ear. But behind the scenes, the stories were different. Barry White, among others, believed Clive wasn't just about the music. He was about control, total control. Multiple artists over the years have quietly accused him of manipulating careers, blocking those who didn't comply, and favoring those who fed into his agenda.
We do the fuller chorus similar to the first time it appears, rather than what it was the second. And that's it. And I think it's a great, another great Jim Steinman song.
Without limousines and nightlife, the record business might be just another assembly line job. Davis knows the difference and uses all the tools. This Hollywood party featured stars like Dionne Warwick and Jermaine Jackson. The gathering was a Davis innovation to introduce one of his newest singers, Whitney Houston.
Do you have artists that are good musically, good songwriters, and excellent performers that never make it, and you wonder why?
Sure, every artist I've signed that hasn't made it.
Davis has always assumed a far more active role than most record company presidents. That's why he was a pioneer in the 60s. It's also why he has survived into the 80s to help lead a resurgence in record sales.
With all the hoopla that's gone on in the last year, that video games would replace music and computers would replace music and records were on their way out, or tapes, it's turned out to be total hogwash. Music is unique, music is special, music has a very individual, meaningful role in society, not only to youth, but to the 25 to 50 age bracket as well. And we have not only survived, but we're flourishing now.
My dream is that in the next year or two, the 23rd Amendment will pass and will allow Barack Obama to run for a third term as President of the United States.
Barry's success and independence rubbed Clive the wrong way. Why? Because Barry didn't bow. He produced his own music, built his empire, and never needed Clive to validate him. That independence made him a threat. So when Luther Vandross began to blow up, Clive saw opportunity. He signed Luther to J Records, promising him creative freedom and unlimited potential. But here's the part they never told you. Luther was a perfectionist, a studio magician, a singer's singer. But when he linked up with Clive Davis, things started shifting. On July 1st, 2005, the world lost Luther Vandross at just 54 years old. The official cause? A heart attack. But for fans who had followed him closely, it felt deeper than just a health issue. It felt like the system had swallowed another genius whole. The music Luther had was insane. His image was scrutinized. His weight was mocked publicly. Rumors swirled about his private life. Rumors that insiders claim were weaponized to keep him in line. And according to people like Katt Williams, Jaguar Wright, and now even leaked insiders, Luther may have been forced into situations he never wanted, all in the name of protecting his career. In interviews, Luther spoke about his deep loneliness, his battles with body image, and the pressure to be perfect in a world that judged him for everything. Those close to him say he felt trapped, creatively, emotionally, and spiritually. And more whispers started surfacing about Clive Davis using Luther in ways that went far beyond contracts.
And about 3 weeks before the show was due to be taped, I called up Dionne. I said, you know what? I can't do Soul Train, the second one. I can't do this. I can't do it.
And I said, are you sick? No, I just can't be seen right now. So I went by his home. So what's the problem? I mean, it's something that apparently we can fix. Look at me, look at me. I said, I'm looking at you. I mean, I look like the Goodyear blimp. All you gotta do is write Goodyear across my butt and fly me. I said, Luther, I said, are you crazy?
I can't face the curtain opening and them saying, ladies and gentlemen, to host the 2nd annual Soul Train Music Awards, Dionne Warwick and Luther Vandross, and the curtain opens, and I'm 90 pounds heavier than I was the previous year.
And he had the tape on from last year. And of course, you know, that plays tricks with the head. Look at me, and now look at me. That doesn't matter. People love Luther. They don't care if you're heavy or if you're thin or if you're in between. They care about you.
You know, she tried to talk me out of it, and I was just too mortified.
It's over now.
And I was at my biggest weight. And across the hall walked one of the waiters. And I said, see Whitney, I said, that's the size I want to get down to. And she said, why? I said, well, look at, I said, he has a 34 waist, he's my height, it's just right, She said, yeah, but Luther, he can't sing. And I said, yeah, but look at how the jacket falls. And, that's how the designer meant for it to happen, and how everything just falls. She said, yeah, but Luther, he can't sing, And that message just, that message resonates, throughout my life, This is a special gift.
That was a moment for him and I. Otherwise, he could be big as out, or as thin as a rail. He can sing, and he makes me cry, he makes me laugh. I feel his lyric, I feel his melody, I feel his passion, his love, his pain, his hurt.
'Cause I believe in the power of love.
I was a certified yo-yo dieter. So prior to that, I had lost and gained in excess of 110, 120 pounds. At that point, maybe 8, 9 times before.
I think that he finally decided that he wanted to put his health in a certain place, and he wanted to have some control over how he's presenting himself.
I'm in my 3rd year, I'm proud to say. I'm in my 3rd year, and this is the longest I've ever kept it off.
Are you in a good place now in your life?
Depends on when you ask me whether or not it's a good place.
Are you happy?
It depends. It also depends on when you ask. Asking right now, no, not particularly. No, it's too much work that yields too little result for my assessment of it all. And that's the state of mind that I'm in on this evening. Now, you could ask me that same question tomorrow morning and I may give you a different answer.
Rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, suggested that Luther's was used as leverage, that Clive pressured him to keep secrets, to mold his image, and to stay quiet about what really went on behind closed doors. Some even claim Luther wanted to leave, to speak out, but was convinced to stay silent, while fans debated, connected the dots, and dug into the archives. Clive Davis came forward and confirmed it himself. Yes, he's
Well, Clive, I'm sure as everyone here knows, one of the big revelations, as the book, began to make its way out there, was you were talking about your personal life, your kind of, discovery of yourself and that was something that, you had never discussed publicly before. And, it was an important part of the book and it made a big impact. I wonder if you could say a little bit about, we've heard so many stories just here tonight. The book very easily could just have been exclusively devoted to music and really had nothing about your personal life in it. What was it that made you feel that it was important, to share elements of your background from Brooklyn right up into, the nature of your life?
All right, I'll do that. And but I do want to say, because somehow in the conversation I had earlier this evening, it became relevant to point out that other than you, Anthony, with whom I collaborated with and for this book from the very beginning, the publisher knew nothing about this. This was not in the treatment, this was not in the presentation.
It was very specifically not in the proposal to sell the book.
It was not in the proposal, so that nobody who bid on this book.
The editor of the book had no idea that it would be in there.
This was not trying to get a subject that would make a book sell better. It was none of that. And when you read the book, you'll see it's dealt with in the very last chapter. I knew from the beginning, as I expressed to you at the very beginning, that if I was going to write a book on my life, that there's no question I was going to deal with this subject. It was nothing you and I discussed. It was a chapter that I had to write myself. And I really wrote it last summer on a boat, a trip that I take with my family, because certainly my prime role in life has been my children. I have 4, my grandchildren, I have 6. And I wrote that part of the last chapter and read it to my 4 offspring. We were on the boat together. And I've always had total love and support and understanding that after my second marriage failed, because I had been 100% up until that point, that I opened myself up after the failure of my second marriage, having read something about reality. My story was different. I just found that I would open myself up to the possibility of a relationship based on the person and not on gender. And I did after seeing a man or a woman for about a 4 or 5 year period of time, interregnum, entered into a relationship with a man. And I just revealed that because that's what the facts were and are. And to the extent when I was aware, I immediately told my children. My children knew of that. My closest friends certainly all knew because we would take trips together. I would take 3 or 4 trips a year, 2 with family, 2 with friends. We would all do it together.
And now, with the Diddy scandal exploding and lawsuits piling up, more rumors are boiling to the surface. Ones that connect Clive and Diddy in ways that were never spoken of before. We're talking about whispers of power exchanges that had little to do with music and more to do with control, image, and submission.
So I have to ask you, what was your favorite memory working with Diddy?
You know, personally, I've got to tell you, he really is a major star in this film tonight. He's a spokesman all the way through. I met him before I ever knew of him. I met him when he was 21 years old. And when we met, you know, he played me Craig Mack's Flavor in Your Ear. He played me 3 cuts from the forthcoming Notorious B.I.G. album. And we talked for hours and hours about music, and I bought into his dream. And I financed Bad Boy Records. And we had an incredible run, an incredible period with all the artists that are touring, you know, from Mace and him, and obviously the great legacy of Biggie and, you know, Faith and 112, so that the total, I don't want to leave anybody out, but, you know, we shared conventions and conferences and rallies together, and to see him, you know, the time that Whitney died, that night when we were at, you know, my Grammy party, and it was Puffy.
They sacrificed Diddy. They said, "You gotta take this shit, 'cause we can't be involved." But Diddy's smart. He filmed every session, so he was Clive and Freak Boy that run Universal Music Group. So he got them on some tapes. Now that's why they raiding the house, because they got friends in Homeland Security and the feds, and they said get in there and get them tapes from this trying to blackmail us. That's what I believe is going on.
My focus right now is Sean Combs because he's a trafficker, most likely because he was victimized by his mentor, Clive Davis.
Rumor has it, allegedly, Diddy got on his knees for Clive Davis in 1994.
He got a boss too, and his boss name is Clive Davis. Clive run him.
Diddy don't run himself.
And let's not ignore the timing. With Clive now reportedly over 90 years old, not 100, but pushing it, he was recently seen leaving a high-end event when reporters confronted him about Diddy's freak-offs and deeper ties.
What is your opinion about the Melendez brothers? Do you think they should be out?
How you doing, Mr. Davis?
How are you?
Good.
Do you have any opinions about Mr. Melendez?
American Music Awards. Are you going to be there? The AMAs, American Music Awards? Mr. Davis, what if we have? Oh, sorry. Watch yourself. If we have one question, Mr. Davis, about Sean Puffy Combs, do you have anything to say about that situation?
No.
Nothing. Anything to say about Puffy?
Do you support him?
Anything to say about Puffy at all? A lot of people are curious about the status of P. Diddy. P. Diddy. Diddy. What do you make of that situation? No comment from Clive Davis.
Two legends, two cautionary tales. Barry White, who always stood firm and called the game what it was. He warned Luther, told him not to fall into the same hands. He told people about the price of fame and the greed that swallows souls. Luther Vandross, gentle, reserved, and brilliant. Someone who just wanted to sing, to love, to express. But what he found in the industry was pressure, image manipulation, isolation, and a powerful man behind the curtain controlling too much.
What happened? Believe me when I say, it is as much a shock to me as it is to anyone. But about, I'd say 3 weeks before his death, I went to visit him, and when I got ready to leave, there was a difference.
A good way? A good difference or not?
It was strange. It was very strange. And I called his manager and I said to him, Carmen, I think I'm
associated with Luther Vandross. What do you think of when you think of his music?
I like remembering when he was coming into his music and how he shocked me.
How so? What happened?
No, I know that he loved music because you could make him clean the house like a electric maid if you tell him you was going to buy him a record. He just loved it.
Now there's this new album, so amazing. What do you think of when you see all of these big names singing your son's music?
What I think about this is all the love he had for these people. These people have turned around and gave back the love to him. And that's why I know when you give love, you get love.
So, what do you think? Was Clive really the reason Luther spiraled? How many artists have to fall before we call it what it is? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on any new videos. Until then, fam, keep it real.